with us. And Cheri, you know, I'm not sure why they brought you in specifically for the marijuana.
Yeah, the politics of pot.
The politics of pot. Well, tell us about the politics of pot.
The politics of pot. Yeah, the train has left the station on this.
Well, here's the thing.
It's happening.
You're a Republican. You're a Republican strategist. You've been involved with the party for a long time. For years, they were pretty steadfast against marijuana. Now you've got guys like Rand Paul really shaking it up. But just yesterday, Chris Christie said, if you elect me, I'll squash this thing.
Yeah, that was kind of confusing. Well, first of all, I think he's trying to do something for those values voters, you know, for a Republican primary who don't really consider him conservative. So he's thinking, well, I'll just appeal to them on this front. But I find that odd because New Jersey would like to have all that money. You talked about all the money these states are getting, which is why more and more people are kind of looking the other way about legalizing marijuana. A lot of money for the states. And Chris Christie is the guy that signed into law to legalize internet gambling, and it didn't bring in the money into the state that it was supposed to. So that wasn't something that the values voters liked. So it's a really confusing situation.
Though? Where's the GOP now? I mean, across the board, from libertarian, Tea Party to the religious right, across the board, yay or nay on the GOP?
I think ultimately they're going to be wink, wink, leave it to the states, and that way, you know, they can bring in the money. That's what they need, and the values voters will still be against it. But I think it's happened. Like
That's
I said,
part of the
train
bill.
Is out.
Part of the bill that's going through. There's basically 5 aspects of it, but one of the aspects is basically the federal government saying we're getting out of the way, let the states, you know, regulate this. And there's 23 right now that it's legal for medical, and I think that's definitely going to happen. They're going to take it from a class 1 drug, which is basically heroin or something, down to a class 2 because it has some medical purposes and a couple other things. But I think that you're exactly right. They're going to step back and say let the states decide it and just kind of wash their hands.
And here's where I know it's Washington D.C. now. There's one restaurant. There might be more. One restaurant now has pot pairings on the menu. The way you have wine pairings, you know, what food on the menu would go with this wine? They're now doing it for pot. I mean, come on.
And can you smoke the pot in the restaurant?
I don't know. I just.
Well, do they serve it in a restaurant? They just, I mean,
they have pairings, so you know what.
I mean, listen. I mean, I think it points to the fact that this is going to be a real interesting election. You know, we've already seen. I think the 3 announced candidates on the Republican side have added some extra flavor that we haven't seen from the GOP in a while. And I think it's also going to maybe even speak to economics as well. We may see some different things there as well. We could never pin you down on what you might be, because sometimes you sound conservative, sometimes you sound like a limousine liberal. So where are you on this?
Well, look, first, from an economic perspective.
Should I call you driver?
From an economic perspective, you definitely want to legalize it, because what you have when you have an illegal drug like this is you have what's called economic rent. And so it's the criminals that make that economic rent, and it fosters all sorts of things you don't want, like the drug wars that we see on the border of Mexico, killings, violence. So by legalizing it, you take away that economic rent. But
isn't there a cost, though, a different cost later for people who get hooked on drugs? People who can't ever fulfill maybe innate gifts that they have, maybe people who turn to crime. Is there another cost that counterbalances this cost?
Well, you know, those people were probably getting it. Pot has not been difficult to get in America probably for the last 25 years, maybe longer. And so in that sense, no, I don't think legalizing it makes it more accessible for adults. The issue is for children, and this comes in with edibles. So you have organizations like Smart Colorado, which is saying, listen, we can't have a Reese's peanut butter cup out there unlabeled, so some 7-year-old is going to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup that's really a pot.
The difference between medical and recreational, too. Medical is great. I mean, recreational is another thing.
Well, let's talk about that, because I guess the recreational side maybe ultimately will be the big money, right? Yeah. I mean, medical has been doing well. So how do our viewers make money in this? Matt, I was up last night. I saw 200 different pot stocks. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them. Most of them are penny stocks. But obviously, it's like the Wild Wild West. There will be some big-time winners.
There will be. And it's tough for me to mention any of them on air because they're like $50 million market cap, very small. They're penny stocks. We follow a couple. We own a couple at our firm.
Don't you like that GW Pharma?
GW Pharma, we've recommended many times on the show. 2 others, INSY is a competitor. It's a biotech as well. And Cara Pharmaceuticals, CARI. That stock's been going bananas. All 3 take cannabinoids out of the plant, so you don't get the psychoactive, but it does really help pain. GW Pharma's up big because it's actually proven to help epileptic children. There's a lot of benefits.
I bit the bullet and jumped in, okay? I got to tell you, I mean, I looked at the numbers, I looked at the fundamentals, and I think the stock's going to break out to a double top here real soon. Jim, you like any of these things? You've been conspicuously quiet on this whole thing. I don't know. Thinking about the good old days.
thinking about
Yesterday, last night, last
remember
weekend.
Trying to think about exactly what these oils and how it might be beneficial for a number of reasons. I agree with Matt's point. This is very speculative stuff. With that in mind, I went with Medbox. They make their money off operating, off the vending machines.
Right.
And again, I think I'm looking for the ways of selling picks and shovels.
When that stock at one point it went up like 1,000% in a couple of days. Where is it now? Is it pulled back a lot?
Pulled way back, and in fact, and again, it's had its issues, but again, I do think they're making money off their operating, and that's something that's unique. As I looked at the various ways of playing this, there's going to be companies that are going to be doing water filtration, lighting for these things. There are going to be many ways to play it, but this
Although,
one's my
Jim, I think ultimately it might be like the e-cigarette craze, where if it gets to the point where it really looks like it's going to take over the masses, the big boys will come in, maybe acquisitions or just with a better product.
Right. I think you're in the very early pioneering days as an investor in this industry, and I would say investors should be careful. Look at the quality, look at the balance sheet, look at the cash flow, and don't be too speculative.
A record amount of money went into penny stocks last year because of marijuana stocks. So I know you guys love them. That's why we're bringing them up. You heard some names here, but they're all very speculative, so beware. Hey, also Netflix versus Verizon, the upstart video streaming titan. Well, it's only up 165% over the last couple of years, and Verizon up 20%. Guess who's winning that battle? Verizon's latest attempt to try to get back into the game might be dead on arrival, at least in my opinion. But tweet me, tell me what you think. We're going to discuss it later, next, and try to make you some money.